Imagine it's the year 1400, and you have to bet on who's going to run the world. You wouldn't bet on Europe. Europe is the backwater, poor, plague-ridden, a messy pile of little kingdoms endlessly at war. The obvious bet is China, the largest country, the richest cities, and a fleet unlike anything the ocean had ever carried. Treasure ships 400 feet long, expeditions of nearly 28,000 men. When Columbus finally sails, 90 years later, he'll have 3 small ships and 90 men. And yet, 400 years on, it's Europe that rules most of the planet. Not China. Not the favourite. The underdog. Why? The answer is one of history's strangest jokes. Europe won because of the very thing that made it look weak. Start with the favourite. From 1405, Admiral Zheng He led 7 voyages across the Indian Ocean to India, Arabia, East Africa. Then, in 1433, the court in Beijing simply stopped. New emperor, new priorities. The fleet was expensive, the threats were inland, and the ocean brought nothing the empire thought it needed. Later officials went further. The treasure fleet rotted, and the logbooks were destroyed, so no one would repeat the adventure. Here is the hidden price of unity. When one throne decides everything, one decision can cancel the ocean. For everyone, forever. The greatest navy in history was switched off, like a lamp. Now look at Europe. And look at the map itself. Peninsulas jutting everywhere, Iberia, Italy, Greece, Scandinavia, mountain walls, the Alps, the Pyrenees, rivers slicing the land into pockets. Historians call it fractured land, geography that makes empires almost impossible to hold together. Charlemagne tried, the Habsburgs tried, Napoleon tried. The map won every time. China's heartland is one smooth, connected plain. It spent most of 2,000 years as one empire. Europe spent those centuries as hundreds of kingdoms, duchies and city-states, crammed together, glaring at each other across every river. And that fractured map created something China's unity never could. A tournament with no off-switch. Watch Columbus. He pitches his voyage to Portugal, rejected, to Genoa, to Venice, rejected, to Spain, rejected twice, then finally, yes. In China, one imperial no ended ocean exploration for centuries. In Europe, no just meant, try the king next door. And the kings had no choice but to listen, because falling behind a neighbour meant being swallowed by him. Better cannon, better ships, better maps, better banks. Not because Europeans were wiser, but because every ruler was afraid. Competition did what no emperor could order. It made innovation compulsory. Here's the irony at the heart of the story. The tools Europe conquered with, mostly not European. Gunpowder, invented in China. The compass, China. Printing, paper, China. Under one calm, secure throne, gunpowder stayed close to fireworks and ceremony. In Europe's permanent arms race, it became siege cannon and muskets. The compass, in Europe's trade wars, drove ocean-crossing caravels. And printing? China had it for centuries under state control. In fragmented Europe, no one could control it. Ban a book in one kingdom, and it was printed in the next. Same inventions, different rules of the game. The tournament weaponized everything it touched. But the biggest weapon in Europe's conquest wasn't built by anyone. When Cortés landed in Mexico, he had about 500 men, against an empire of millions. Pizarro took on the Inca with 168. On paper, that's absurd. What made it possible was invisible. Sprovia of Eurasian cities and livestock had bred diseases and immunity that the Americas had never met. Smallpox and measles ran ahead of the conquerors, killing rulers, armies, whole cities. Within a century, the indigenous population of the Americas collapsed by as much as 90%. Tens of millions of people. The largest demographic catastrophe in recorded history. That wasn't strategy, and it wasn't genius. It was biology. And it should temper every triumphant story anyone tells about this era. One more piece: how do you pay for 1,000 risky voyages? Europe's answer changed the world twice. In 1602, Dutch merchants invented the Joint Stock Company, the VOC. Instead of one merchant betting his fortune on one ship, thousands of investors each bought a small share. A ship sinks, nobody is ruined. A cargo returns, everyone profits. Suddenly the ocean wasn't a gamble for kings, it was an investment product for shopkeepers. Conquest, colonies, trade routes, effectively crowdfunded. The tournament now had a banking system. So, fractured geography, forced competition, borrowed inventions, invisible germs, and pooled money. Notice what's not on that list. Any special quality of Europeans themselves. The tools were Chinese. The germs were an accident of geography. Eurasia's cattle and cities, not anyone's brilliance. The competition was an act of the map, not of character. This is the same lesson as our video on rich and poor countries. Geography deals the cards. Rules play the hand. Europe didn't win because its people were better. It won because its situation made standing still impossible. And here's the proof: it was a recipe, not a bloodline. The moment other nations adopted the same toolkit, competition, science, industry, open markets, they caught up at terrifying speed. Japan, humiliated by Western gunboats in 1853, rebuilt itself in one generation and defeated a European great power by 1905. South Korea did it in a lifetime. China, the old favourite, is again one of the two largest economies on Earth. The European miracle turned out to be portable. Recipes travel. Bloodlines are a myth. So why did Europe conquer the world? Because nobody could conquer Europe. One unified empire can cancel the future with a single decree. That's what happened to the greatest fleet in history. 500 quarreling states can't cancel anything. Someone always says yes, someone always builds the next cannon, funds the next voyage, prints the banned book, add borrowed inventions, an accident of germs, and a machine for sharing risk. And the underdog eats the world. It's not a flattering story, and it's not a story about better people. It's a story about a tournament nobody could switch off. So next time you look at Europe's messy, crooked little borders, remember, that mess is exactly what conquered the world.